and build your search engine strategies from there.
Cool. So, David, let's talk about copywriting, the words that you actually write, and let's talk about how, and we're going to spare people from the NLP jargon and you know, the NLP words, but you know, it all is all the same in terms of getting your words to just dance off of the screen, paper, whatever, and create an emotional impact on the reader. How do we do that when we don't have the benefit of sound and the other, as NLP calls them, representational systems, meaning we're looking at a word, and how do we get the written word to impact the emotions of the reader?
Well, there's several ways you can do that. And when I teach my persuasion and influence classes, I teach people that you have to create a world and step in. You have to create the world that your subject lives in and step into it yourself, first and foremost. So there's 3 levels or 3 different approaches that you can take in terms of eliciting a set of states or a set of experiences. And we need to understand, when I talk about state, buying is a state. There's a state you go into right before you're about to press the buy button, right? How do we get people into those states? Well, the fastest way is to find something they really, really want more of, or something they want a lot less of. And we need to tap them into those emotions. The 3 ways we can do that is to describe a process, describe a situation, a scenario that they can identify with and relate to. The easiest one to influence any single human being is their own experience. It's the most powerful one. We can't resist our own experience. We can't resist ourselves. Okay? People will resist what you tell them, but they'll never resist what they conclude. As a neurolinguistic programmer and an expert in SHIT, S-H-I-T, Specialized Human Influence Technologies, not my first rodeo, my job is to understand their world so that I can lead them to a different one. Okay? People will resist what you tell them. They will never resist what they conclude. So it's vitally important that when you speak from a place of understanding their world, and you suck them into a world where you are both speaking the same language. That's the most powerful way to influence another human being. But it's not always the easiest one to get, because if you're a marketer, you're speaking literally to thousands and thousands of people, which goes back to a certain marketing tactic, whether you're utilizing email, video, or blog posts, or a sales letter. When you write, you don't write as if you're talking to everyone. You write as if you're talking to your best friend, your only friend, the friend you love most, the friend you care most about. Right? If you do that, and you come from that place of wanting to help, give first. Give them an experience. Give them a story. And then tell them what to do next. Right? If your story is something they can identify with and relate to, then they will go into a profound hypnotic state, because they have to in order to understand what you've written. So the easiest way to do that is to step into enough of your clients' mindsets and experiences to understand their world and write from that world. In hypnosis and NLP, we call that deep trance identification. But literally, you'll hear copywriters talk about entering the conversation that's already in your subject's or your prospect's mind. In order to do that, you have to actually step into them in some way and live the world as the person with the problem you're going to solve. You need to describe it the way that person would describe it. Complain about it the way that person complains about it. Talk about the things that they tried and failed the way that person would. When you do that effectively, then everything you say will resonate with the person who's reading its internal experience. They'll identify with you, and they'll start to trust you more. That's the biggest hurdle that we have in internet marketing, is getting people to trust us enough to invest in our solutions. Right? Notice I didn't say trust us enough to give us their credit card. It's a different mindset. Trust us enough to invest in the solutions we're offering. And we're offering it to them. We're not going to sell them, right? again, there's a lot of do it now, do it now, do it now, and those things have a place in the internet marketing world. They're important calls to action. They're important. Scarcity principle never goes out of style. Reciprocity never goes out of style. These principles of social influence are part and parcel of direct response marketing, and no matter how pretty your website, you got to have them. Because if you don't give people a deadline, if you don't tell people what to do next, they'll do nothing. They'll do nothing, right? You may make your writing or your storytelling a little bit uglier, a little bit more, I don't know what the word is, earthy, I guess, maybe. But that's why you're here. You're here to make money. You're here to do business. Now, you're here to help people. But there's no law that says you can't make money helping people, and you got to remember that. You have a right to the income you generate as long as you do it in an ethical, honest way. And if you truly have a product or service that can do that, then you have every right to tell people what a great product it is, but you got to prove it to them. The only way you're going to prove it to them is if you give them an experience of your product, either virtually through telling stories, testimonials, or giving them a sample that they can actually go out and use. These are things that I have found over and over again to be the biggest conversion buttons that you have. But you have to get them to identify with you. You have to get them to believe that you've been where they are, right? The happy medium between your experience of their experience and their telling of it is universal experiences. We all know what it's like to go into the bathroom, sit down on the toilet, do our business, reach out and find out there's no toilet paper on the roll. That's a universal experience. As simple as it is, everybody who just listened to that can relate because it's happened to all of us. It's a universal experience. You can start by talking about universal experiences, things that are almost impossible for people not to have had and then lead them step by step by step into more precise or directed approaches, right? So it's always better to talk about general experiences first, then talk about your experiences, and whenever possible, pull their experiences, like using permissive language. Like, you may have noticed that, has this ever happened to you, or has that ever happened to you? These are things that cause them to go into their mind and find events and situations and circumstances that are directly relevant to what you're talking about. It gets them moving in and out of their mind, and that creates a fractionation effect which trances them out and really kind of identifies them with where you're going. And as long as your copy is engaging, emotionally absorptive, they'll stay hooked. The minute the reader gets bored or his eyes get tired, they're gone, right? So these are things that we need to start with. We need to step into the mindset and the problems and the desires of our number one client, our best client, the kind of client we want, the one that will pull out their platinum card at the drop of a hat and buy everything, right? And everybody else will fall in a continuum. Right? We need to step into their problems, their wants, their desires. We need to eliminate the possible solutions. You've had this XYZ problem, and I did too for many, many years, and then I tried this and it didn't work, and I tried that and it didn't work. And go through every conceivable option that's available out there on the internet that they could have tried and leave yours as the one solution that answers it all. But you have to start where they're at and work that way. Does that help?
Yep, absolutely. So let's talk about language patterns. It's probably the sexiest topic in the sales and influence space and the NLP space. And in terms of that, your model really uses language patterns that even if someone quote unquote catches you, and certainly people have accused me of using them in my writing, and I say, what are you accusing me of, being a descriptive writer?
Yeah.
How about we go into one. We obviously don't have time. We could spend the rest of the night on your specific language patterns that you've selected within your model. But why don't you pick the first one that comes to mind, and let's give the audience a written and verbal description on how to use and how you can use these to better impact your reader.
Well, probably the most directly relevant one to internet marketing, especially if you're going to be using sales copy, email, calls to action, testimonials, is probably going to be the Mac Daddy of. There's one that's actually more powerful than the one I'm about to describe to you, but it takes a little bit more background and finesse to use, but it's actually the one I'm not going to tell you about. Actually, is the most powerful language pattern on the planet, and you can't resist it even when you know it's being done. It's that powerful. I've openly challenged audiences all over the world to fight this pattern, and they can't do it because it's one of the fundamental building blocks of human experience, either subjectively or objectively. But what we're going to talk about right now is a language pattern that's commonly referred to in NLP and Ericksonian hypnosis as cause and effect. Cause and effect, words in this category are and, as, allows, causes, because, creates, makes, triggers. These are words in a category. And the way it works is anything that you can call attention to that a human being can verify is true. In NLP, they call that a PACE. For practical marketing, we're going to call it undeniably true. So if I call attention to the fact that the screen behind me is white and blue, you can look at it, you can say, yep, he's right. And I can say, I'm wearing headphones. You can look at the screen and say, yep, I'm wearing headphones. And you're listening to my words. And you can go in and you can say, well, yeah. And there's a part of you now going, where the fuck's he going with this, right? Now, how do you verify where the fuck's he going with this? Because what happened was when I pointed to the screen, you said, yep. And then I pointed to the headphones, you said, yep. And then I said, you're listening to my words. And then I said, and then you're probably wondering, where the fuck's he going with this? And there's a little voice that said, yeah, where the fuck is he going with this? That's called a lead. You see, when you paste something and then you connect it through one of those words, and you're probably wondering, the brain that parses between being told what to do and discovering what's true and validating what's true goes to sleep. And it assumes that everything that follows the pace is just as true as everything else. In marketing, you start talking about the facts. You start talking about experiences that they can't argue with. And then using these words, you tell them what to think next. Right? And you can do this cycling through all of your sales copy. You can cycle it through all of your email copy. Another real key word in this category is the word because. In email marketing, this goes directly to what is commonly referred to as the reason why. Hi, this is David from NLP Power. I'm emailing you today because my parakeet just had an existential crisis and he miraculously survived, and I'm so excited about it, I decided to celebrate by holding a sale. Right? When you do that, right, it doesn't matter why they're emailing anymore. It's no longer an intrusion. Right? And so that reason why goes right back to cause and effect. And one of the reasons that cause and effect languaging is so powerful is because all of your belief systems are built out of the structure that creates cause and effect relationships in people. It's neurologically hardwired into every part of every human being on the planet. So as long as you've pasted correctly, you've identified things that they cannot argue with, that they have to accept as true. And using that category of words, and, as, cause, causes, triggers, allows, creates, makes, you'll create a causal relationship between the things that are true and the things you want them to say, think, believe, or do. And they won't argue with it because it fits the structure that all cause and effect belief systems are based out of. And every belief system is based on cause and effect. So you're literally speaking the language of belief. It engages a process of presupposition in NLP we call pseudo-reality. Everything that comes out in this structure, the neurology, acts as if it's completely true, which makes it extraordinarily powerful for both good and evil. So be very careful with how you use this. If you're using these language patterns to take advantage of somebody, if you're using these language patterns to create win-lose situations, that's going to come back to haunt you. Okay? There's no need to do that. As long as you got a good product at a good price and you can reliably and honestly use these patterns to link what you want to what you want them to do, or what they want to what you want them to do, you'll make as much money as humanly possible by being honest and just telling people what to do next. Does that help?
Absolutely. So audience, as we move your attention from the last topic that we talked to, we're going to move your attention into the topic of conversion. And we've talked about it, so we're not going to go too deep into conversion, but
product placement.
Let's go into conversion and you know, keeping it brief because we're about to move into sales and one-on-one type of persuasion, which is awesome stuff. What's one brief tip that a viewer can employ in terms of increasing the conversion from the internet into real life?
To raise the conversion from internet into real life, is that what you said?
Yeah, increasing the conversion, you know, from their website into their list, into an appointment, into the area that we're trying to move them into.
I think the most important thing to do is to give value up front. You know, I think it's important that first and foremost you speak to their needs, the things they want less of, and how to get the things they want more of, in the language of that market, in the language of the people that you want to service. And I use that word very, very seriously, service, not in terms of you know, a butler or a waiter, but more in terms of like a doctor or a lawyer or a therapist might serve. You as a marketer are providing a solution, right? And so you need to make sure that your subjects really get the experience of being understood and that they can get those needs met by you. And then what you need to do is you need to give them a taste. You need to give them an experience of your product or service that they can go out and win with right off the bat, right? That they can prove to themselves the validity of what you have to offer, and then point out the next problem. Okay, you've solved how to, you know, approach a woman without fear of rejection. Now, how do you get her phone number, right? Or you've learned how to, you know, to make your first $10,000 in trading. Now, how do you grow it even more? You know, how do you keep those wins going, right? There's always the next level, but you need to give them something that's simple, easy, that they can do right now, that gives them that feel-good sense of accomplishment, and tell them where to go next.
Awesome.
That alone, and as long as you keep doing that, they'll keep buying.
Right. And obviously there's an element of reciprocity in what you're saying, and certainly the universal power of giving something first, and the person that goes first.
It's one of the prime mediators of social behavior. Reciprocity is the queen, if for lack of a better word, of the social hypnotic operators. Commitment and consistency, you know, liking, scarcity, reciprocity. These are all things that need to be built into every aspect of your business. Right now, some people are very, very direct response driven. Some people are more blogging driven, where they're going to create content and create a little tribe, for lack of a better word. And ultimately, anybody who's successful in their niche is going to build, especially if you're an affiliate marketer, is going to build a following of loyal or sometimes and very active, hyper responsive clients and subjects and subscribers. And you need to keep them engaged. You need to keep them as part. You have to build that tribe, even while you're expanding your reach. So you have to constantly remember that once they've bought, you haven't done serving them. The most return on your investment is going to come from your happy customers. We're always thinking more customers, more customers, more customers, but you get more actually. If the people have bought your product and they liked it, they're going to buy again. I have people who buy anything that comes out. I've had one person that's bought the same product 6 times, right? Because she thinks it's something different, and she just doesn't care. She just buys it again. I have to keep refunding her because she's buying the same product, right? And every now and then we update our products and things like that. But that's what you'll get. You'll get these hyper-responsive people who don't care if you're selling, as to quote Sam Kinison, they don't care if you're selling shit on bread. Because they trust you, because they like you, they'll buy. Because you've created that relationship. They have so much faith and trust and belief in you as their friend. Not just as somebody to sell shit, but as their friend. If you could hear, because of that freaking YouTube channel, if you could hear the calls I get, you know, and now that they can show YouTube videos on your television, people treat me like I'm Tom freaking Cruise. Like, oh, I pick up the phone. Hi, this is David. Oh my God, it's you. right? And I'm not pointing myself, I'm using myself as an example because I know my experience, and I got to know, if you got 1 million subscribers on your YouTube channel, you pick up a call from one of those subscribers and you're talking to Tony fucking Robbins. That's that level of star power that you will develop as an expert in your niche. But you got to create the relationship. You got to feed it on the front end if you want to harvest it on the back end. So never be afraid of getting, showing your heart and showing that you're a human being to your customers. Create an identity, create a model, create a persona, but be authentic with it, and be true to it, right? So in terms of conversion, it's all going to go back to how much they trust you, how much they connect with you, how easy it is to click from one part of your funnel to the next. Remember, the confused mind says no, and if you give the human nervous system more than 2 choices, it will choose neither, more often than not. So one click or one call to action per step in your funnel is always going to maximize your conversions. Learn how to market to the reptile brain. And there's whole schools of thought on that, so I'm not going to bore you with it. But at the end of the day, speak to the problem and the conversation and the experiences in the mind of your subject. Show them you have the solution. Reward them handsomely for taking a step, and then tell them what to do next.